Hello folks, I'm Alex, this is Alex Unabridged, and this is the Intimidating TBR book tag. So welcome back to the channel if that is the case. Yes, Tag Tuesday, and I was tagged last week by Justin over at Triumphal Reads in the Intimidating TBR book tag. So thank you very much, Justin, for that tag. This has been quite an interesting one, thinking up the answers to. The identity of the original creator of this tag, by the way, seems to be lost to BookTube history. I know Justin couldn't find trace of whoever came up with this, and neither could I. So if anybody does know, drop it in the comments and I will edit the description. So let's dive straight into these questions then. So question number one, what book have you been unable to finish? I've had a few DNFs in my time, but like the one that comes to mind that is one that I've been unable to finish, although I really want to, is Solaris by Stanislav Lem. I've tried this a couple of times, and although I actually really like a lot of it, a lot of the story, a lot of the kind of the atmosphere, characters, etc., I hit a point both times where it goes, a little bit more cerebral, should we say, and my brain melted, basically. And I just kind of put it down and never came back to it. It is, however, on my reading list for my Science Fiction for the Somewhat Hesitant project in June. And I'm determined to get through it this time. I'm gonna do it, damn it. It's gonna get read. Because I do really want to finish it. And as I say, there's a hell of a lot about it that I like. I just like, and I need to go into it and not get scared off by the brain melting bits. Okay, prompt number two then is, what book have you yet to read because you just haven't had the time? Lots. One that's sat in my Audible library as an audiobook is Cryptonomicon by Neil Stevenson, which I do really want to read. I really like the sound of that. But it's nearly 43 hours long, and I just haven't had the time to devote to that. That will wait until I've got kind of a big print project on with my artwork, where I need to just run an edition of prints, and I can get into the zone with that, and I can put on an audiobook, and I'll enjoy having something that will just keep me going through several days of work. So yeah, I think I'll save it for that kind of occasion. Okay, prompt number three is, what book have you yet to read because it's a sequel? That would be The Lost World by Michael Crichton. And this is still sat on my shelf. My sister lent this to me ages ago, but this is still sat on the shelf because I'm, I guess, a little apprehensive and a little anxious that I'm going to be disappointed, because I loved Jurassic Park, the book of, reading the book of that a couple of years ago. I really enjoyed it, and I think I've just been putting this off because I kind of think that it's not going to be as good, and I'm just going to be disappointed with it, and that's a me problem. I need to just get over it and give it a go, because I won't know until I try. so yes, that's that one. Prompt number four is, what book have you yet to read because it's brand new? I can't think of one that is like literally just out that I haven't had a chance to read yet or pick up or what have you. There is one, however, that I'm a little salty about, in that you lovely folks over in the US have already got access to this because it came out in March over there, but we don't get it in the UK until the end of June, and I want it, damn it. And that is Harlan Ellison Greatest Hits, like a new collection with, his greatest hits in, with like, some I think an introduction or a forward by Neil Gaiman, stuff like that. And it's got I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream in it, plus, you know, other stuff. And I mean, I loved I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream when I read that last year. So yeah, it's like that one. I want it, but it's not out here yet. So that one will be not necessarily a day one purchase when it comes out, but certainly very, very soon after it comes out in June. Okay, then prompt number 5 is, what book have you yet to read because you read a book by the same author and didn't enjoy it? That would be Venomous Lumpsucker by Ned Bowman. I bought this with my Christmas vouchers because I like the sound of the premise. It sounds a bit bonkers, sort of grim, satirical, surreal weirdness. And I think I need to give Ned Bowman another chance, but I'm apprehensive about it. I read the Teleportation Accident years and years ago by Ned Bowman, which I think was, you know, possibly one of his first. And I say that's a long time ago, so a lot may have changed in that period of time. But I really didn't like that book at all. That's one of my lowest rated books to date. So I think I'm just a bit apprehensive that, like, I'll start this and I'll be like, oh no, it's just the same. But I won't know, again, I won't know until I try, so I need to just get on with it. Okay, prompt number 6 then is, what book have you yet to read because you're just not in the mood for it? This is an audio book that I've had in my library for a long time. It's non-fiction, and this is called The Transgender Issue, An Argument for Justice by Sean Fay. And this looks at the sort of the state of trans rights, perception, etc., in the UK. And I think further afield, but largely in the UK, it's, you know, Sean Fay is British. And I really want to read this, and I also think that I really should read this. But it's one of those where if my mental health is low, I'm not going to read that because it could make me feel worse. And if I'm feeling good, I'm not necessarily going to want to read that because I don't want it to bring me down. You know, there is some potentially very difficult stuff in there for me as a transgender reader of this. It will speak to my experience, and it will make me mad and sad, and do you know what I mean? It's like, as well as I think it's got some definite positive stuff in it about how we make things better, but it's one that could be quite tricky for me to negotiate as a reader. So yeah, I've just not found the point yet where my mood has been right, and I've felt like this, you know, I can deal with it, and it's, you know, not going to affect my mood too adversely. So yeah, that one will just be one where one day I'll go, yep, I can deal with that, and I'll read it. Okay, prompt number 7 is, which book are you yet to read because it's humongous? There are a few on my TBR, on my general wish list. Hence my quarterly chunk project to get through some of the biggies. You know, where I'm reading a 900 plus page plus book every quarter to try and get through some. But the one that I think is kind of the biggest undertaking for me, in my mind anyway, is The Reality Dysfunction by Peter F. Hamilton, which is number 1 in the Night's Dawn trilogy. It is, excuse me, 1,223 pages, and it's a trilogy, the first one in a trilogy, all of which are over 1,000 pages long. Plus, I think it's, you know, potentially some pretty hard science fiction, it's space opera. You know, it potentially would take me quite a bit to get into. It's not the sort of stuff I usually read, but I really want to give Peter F. Hamilton's stuff a go, as, you know, a British science fiction author of the 90s. and I really like the sound of it. I really like the premise of this. So yeah, it'll be there. It's always going to be there. I will read it at some point. But yeah, that one, the fact that it's the first in a trilogy, so we're essentially talking, you know, probably nearly 4,000 pages for the whole lot. Yeah, that's big. That's a big commitment. Okay, prompt number 8. Which book have you yet to read because it was a cover buy that turned out to have poor reviews? Okay, this one, The Map by T.S. Lerner. This has sat on my shelves for years. This was a second-hand buy, so it wasn't a huge, you know, layout cost-wise. It was only a couple of quid. But yeah, I bought it because you know, it was kind of the sort of thing where I read the back. I thought, oh, this sounds good. I'll read you the back. Mazes, riddles, witchcraft, and centuries-old secrets. An Oxford's classic scholar has discovered an ancient scroll. A band of black magic worshippers has gathered in London. A map to 3 labyrinths hidden within Europe has been unfolded, and an ancient mystery is calling. And it says, it's a sophisticated, relentlessly exciting thriller in the tradition of Dan Brown, Robert Harris, and Kate Moss. So I'm a sucker for anything that might have any kind of sort of esoteric codes, clues, secrets, anything like that. That will immediately catch my eye. And so I read that back of that and kind of went, oh yeah, that sounds great. And then I made the mistake of looking at some reviews of it online, and they're very middling, very middling. You know, there's quite a lot that say it's nowhere near, it's not really a thriller, it's quite slow, and it's quite bland. And they may be right, they may be wrong, but it's kind of just, it's one of those where it put me off for so long that now it's just sat on the shelf, and it kind of almost gets lost in the shelf. Do you know what I mean? It's like every time I look at the shelf, my eyes kind of scan past it. So I think I probably just need to keep it out and in sight and just go for it at some point and get the damn thing read. Either that or get rid of it if I'm never going to read it. But yeah, it does intrigue me. So I might as well give it a go. It's one of those where I kind of go, well, if I DNF it, then no harm done. Okay, and prompt number 9 then, last one. What's the most intimidating book in your TBR pile? Intimidating to me usually is a matter of language. That's what makes something intimidating. Hence why I don't read a lot of big classics, things like that, because I find language of a different era quite difficult to read, or anything that might be poetry. Things like that. It's language is often the barrier for me for comprehension in terms of language usage, patterns, syntax, all that kind of stuff that I find more difficult. But one that I would really love to read is The Divine Comedy by Dante. I'd love to read it because I see how influential it is, has been and still is. I'm fascinated by like the imagery in it, the themes in it, but the language really scares me in terms of like my ability to understand it. That would be quite an undertaking for me, and I will do it at some stage, but I'm going to have to devote like quite a lot of time to it, and I'm going to have to do it in small chunks, and then go off and actually like kind of treat it academically essentially, and go off and actually look at, you know, writings about the Divine Comedy to understand it and kind of get a better kind of comprehension of it and its cultural, historical context, etc. So it's a bigger project, and so therefore it is intimidating because of that. I will do it at some stage, but yeah, it's one that's just in the back of my mind as like, I'm going to do it at some stage, but I've got to have the time and the brain space to do it. So there we go. Those are my answers to the intimidating TBR book tag. Last thing for me to do is to tag some folks As I say, I think this one pops up every now and again, and then goes away again, and then pops up again. So if you've already done this or been tagged in this, apologies. But if not, and you fancy it, crack on and have a go. So I will tag Roy Reads Anything, Debs over at Raina Reads Stuff, and Troy, Mr. Troy Tradup. There we go. That's 3 people to tag if you fancy it. But that will do from me today. Thank you very much for watching, folks. As always, do drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what your most intimidating books are on your TBR piles or wish lists, what have you. I will be back on Friday with my wrap up for April. So I do hope you will join me again then. But from me, for now, that's ta-ra.